All right, we'll now take the panel question on the economy. Mr. Bromskin, can you move to the podium, please? The majority of Liberia's budget. Can we have your attention, please? Thank you. The majority of Liberia's budget is said to be spent on the recurring costs of running the government, especially regarding the payment of salaries. If you have the opportunity to go to the executive mansion, what measures will you propose to rein in the running, especially with the running of the government regarding this salary payment?
Well, I think I partly answered that question earlier when I talked about the reduction of salaries of the top few people. Because you see, this recurring expenses, it's not by the guys at the bottom of the scale, it's by those guys at the top. Okay? So we start by reducing salaries at the top and make sure that we are careful with how we purchase things on behalf of government. The Sally Barker administration, starting 2006, spent millions of dollars every year purchasing vehicles. Not one time they can tell you, say, when vehicles that were purchased and depreciated were sold and the salvage value was reclaimed and placed in government revenue. So what we've been doing, spending money on vehicles for the big shots. After the vehicle are said to have depreciated, they take them and government buy new vehicles for them. Those are the things that we will stop. Look at gasoline fuel, for example. You got all of the big shots receiving gas slips, totally millions and millions of dollars. There is no audit. The legislature presided over by the speaker cannot tell you when last they were audited. They receive millions and millions of dollars in gas slip. That's going to stop. That's going to stop. I would like to have government gas distribution centralized, where instead of giving gas slips, people can go to gas station. You go there, you take your vehicle, you take the mileage of the vehicle. They give you 10 gallons of gas. We know that 10 gallons of gas will take the vehicle's X number of miles. You're coming back. Before you reach X number of miles, you're not going to get the gas. Okay? Those are small, simple means by which we can cut down the recurring expenses of government. But since I still got time, let me talk to Joe's issue about having experience. You know, so experience is not enough. Your experience must be good experience. Okay? I serve in government, and I don't want to be mixed with him. I serve in government as the President Pro Tempore of Liberian Senate. I'm one of the few government officials who were asked to leave government, not because I was corrupt, not because I was inefficient, but because I was advocating for Liberian people, and my way of doing things was different from that of the government of the day. So I don't want the Vice President confusing me and him when it comes to experience. Experience are different, okay? My experience is a good experience that Liberian people need to run this country. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cummings, can you move to the podium, please?
For the question,
do you want me to repeat the question?
is reducing the recurrent?
Yeah.
Yes. So
Mr. Cummings, can you move away from the microphone?
Okay.
Thank you.
I want to come at the question from the other side, meaning the question has been answered in the past as if the budget is static, as if we cannot grow the national budget. One way, and the way we will approach reducing that percentage, is to grow the budget. And the growth in the budget will be used for investment purposes. Yes, there's waste in the budget. I mentioned this earlier. Councillor mentioned the number of cars we buy. I mentioned travel and all the waste, how much we pay per unit of whatever. We have to reduce that. But ultimately, Raymond, we have to take that budget from 550 million to 700 million to a billion to 2 billion. And that's how we will reduce the recurrent expenditure. But let me tell you how we'll do it. So it's not just talk, right? We will do it by stimulating the growth in the economy of our country. We will do it by growing the private sector. We will do it by reducing the amount of regulation. We tie our hands. We create rules and laws that we cannot enforce. And we constrain the Liberian people. We constrain Liberian businesses. And we will simplify. I believe by even reducing our tax rates, we'll actually collect more money because we'll make it simpler to apply. There will be less room for corruption. We will also make sure we get the full value from our natural resources. Because again, we got to grow the revenue. There's cost reduction and there's revenue growth. And so we will grow the economic pie. And if you understand the math, by growing that, even if you help recurring expenditure the same, the percentage will go down over time as we take the budget from $600 million to $2 billion. And that's where we'll focus, is expansion, is growth. I want us as Liberians to rethink how we think about ourselves. We should be more expansive in our thinking. You know, we actually shouldn't talk about poverty reduction. We should be talking about wealth creation. We should want to create wealthy Liberians, not less poor Liberians. And this is what Alexander Cummings, Jeremiah Solonte, and the ANC-led government will do. We will create wealthy Liberians, we'll grow the economic pie for all Liberians, and through that process, we will reduce the amount of recurring expenditures. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a seat, please. Mr. Ure? Do you want me to repeat the question, sir?
No, it's fine. Recurring expenditures. No matter how one takes it, it's a matter of governance. It's a matter of governance. If we don't have the requisite personnel and structures in government to ensure that this does not occur, it will continue to occur. Look, everywhere in the world, when the process of budgeting begins, you will decide that you will take a percentage of your budget and use it on X, Y, and Z, and another percentage on the other. Even if our budget goes to $1 billion and our recurring expenses continue to grow, it doesn't solve the problem. It doesn't, I mean, even if we generate more revenue and have a lot of money to spend, and our recurring expenditures continue to go up, it doesn't help. It's no solution. Take, for example, my colleagues mentioned vehicles, purchasing of vehicles and other necessary things to run the government. I will go for a standardization of most of these things to ensure that we cut down costs. Take, for example, rather than minister riding an $80,000 car, he will ride a $20 Hyundai. Rather than having the legislative branch of government having county development funds where they misuse it, it will go to rural development. And we'll be able to curtail expenditures. And when we project budget, when we have professionals, people who will look at, after we had to have a development plan for the country and say, look, we expect that in 3 years our country will move from point A to point B. And to do that, we need resources. Yes, our budget will be approximately $600 million. What portion of it will we use to get our country to point B? And that is where planners come into, and they will manipulate the figures and all to ensure that we reach our goal in terms of our national development plan. But the recurring expenditures will be decreased under a Uri and Dopo government. Because if we're going to move forward, we have to cut down a lot of things. It's given that salaries will be cut. It's given that the poor, the average policeman on the street, the teacher will get more income. Because it's inhumane for one person to make $75,000 a year and one can make 10.
Thank you, sir. The Vice President, can you move to the podium, please? Do you want me to repeat your question, sir?
The same question?
Yes, sir.
You know, thank God that people now know how much people make, that they can see the budget, something we never knew before. Thank God to the early Joseph elite government that people know now how much people earn, what wastage is going on. At least we have done well in our direction, because knowing the problem is knowing part of the solution. So we know it, but I can tell you that it doesn't have anything much to do with salaries and all of these, good. But all of that is part of the discipline that we're talking about. Where do you lay the emphasis? Is it on salaries? We have an economy that is not expanding. We have expenditure that is expanding. Don't we need to look at it to see what is happening? Because I told you from start, you talk about $20,000 a car on a road that is as bad as going to Lufa, you will buy 3 of those cars in 1 year. You're not talking about the vehicle. We're talking about you're talking about the cost. We have bad roads. We don't have roads. Our economy had not provided. Thank God. This is the first time in the history of Liberia that Liberians are going home to build bridges. They are going home to build roads because of the provision that were made with the County Development Fund, provision that were made up-country for the people to have access to money. This is first in the history of Liberia. 50 years ago, if that had happened, we would have had roads all over this country. So we need to know where the problem lies. We need to know where to put the money. Recurring, sure. But again, we need to know that if we improve the condition of our road, if we improve the quality of our young people, if we improve the life of our women and children, we will see that all of them will be contributors to the growth and development of this country. Inclusiveness, the main purpose of this government is to look after the people and put in discipline to take care of these people.
Mr. Vice President, a major component of the recurring expenditure that many pundits have pointed to is what they call astronomical salaries. Can you commit, there's been some other commitment to reduction of that, can you commit that if you are elected, you're going to pursue salary reduction for public officials?
Maybe most of you don't know that I, for the first 6 years, got half of my allowance. For the first 6 years. I never complained because many people come to government looking for money to spend. You look for opportunity to serve. I'm not against salary reduction, but let's say one thing. We must always remember that corruption and all of these things, if you have a government that plans for people when they leave job that they can have a future, it's another way of being able to manage the economy. Most of the time people leave, they retire, and they have nothing to look forward to. we need to protect those who are working as well. You're talking about higher salary, but let us be assured that there's a future for people when they leave government. The recurring cost of this government, yes, it's high. But it's high because all of the inclusiveness, every party here is making budget. Let's put in discipline that all of us will be committed. I don't care whether I work even for 1/3 of what I earn. That's not a problem. It's not about me. It's about the people of this country.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. You may have your seat.
Thank you.
So we are moving on to the next sector. This brings the end of the economy section, so we're moving on to security and rule of law. And my colleague Boyka will get the chance to ask the first question. And we'll be starting with Mr. Ure.
The question reads, on security and rule of law, what specific plans do you have to strengthen the justice sector so that it adequately responds to the high crime rate and the backlog of pre-trial detentions, which has led to overflowing prison populations in the country?
This is a challenge not only for the president and vice president of Liberia, but it's a challenge for every Liberian. We all are cognizant of one thing. Our security sector needs a lot of improvement. And again, we need to tap on the resources of experienced security personnel. Maybe bring them in advisory capacity to Liberia. In our government, we will opt for the creation of a Ministry of National Security. A Ministry of National Security. And the reason why the Ministry of National Security, because we don't want the executive branch of government headed by the president and the vice president to actually be too involved in the security matter. Like the NSA reports to the president, or the police reports to the president. Immigration almost reports to the president. If you have a national security, look, the study of the security sector was done by experts many years ago under the administration of President Talbot, one of the most progressive presidents Liberia have had. And they saw the need to amalgamate all the security under one umbrella and call it the Ministry of National Security, where experts will be able to examine security reports and find out that a lot of it's not true, like what we have in Liberia today. A lot of information our president gets, it's not correct. They mislead her, they lie to her, and she in turn take actions that are not correct. And at times we get angry with her. But we've come to realize it's a misinformation and the lack of trained security personnel to evaluate these security reports and come up with decisions. This is what we need in this country, to ensure that these security agencies don't go around lying on people and creating scenes to generate money to put in their pocket. Thank you.
Vice President Borkai, we go into the same order again, yeah. So.
The same question?
Yeah, the same question.
When you talk about security, we're talking about external security and internal security. We have done well retraining our soldiers and bringing in quality of people. When I think about security, I look at it holistically. That people have food, do they have access to movement, is there justice? One of the problems here that I always consider as a problem to our security system is unresolved crime. Every time a crime is committed, you never find the criminal. And as long as you can't find the criminal, it means that people will always commit crime. How often do we track down those who commit crime? Everywhere in the world, there's a security rate. There are criminals. But the criminals, even over the years, are brought to bear. We do not respect for human rights. I want to believe that if we improve the quality of education of our people, we improve the quality of life they live and have appreciation for themselves, we are making headlines and moving towards that. But when crimes are committed, and they will be committed, the criminal must be brought to bear. Putting rules together are good, but making sure that you enforce those rules and make them work is what I believe in. And nobody should be protected, no matter who you are. You can't have rules for separate people. The rules must be able to protect the society. They must be able to protect everybody. It's part of what I would believe that we have to institute. A security system that protects all. A security system that will hunt down the criminal and make sure they are arrested and brought to book. Thank you.
Mr. Cummings?
I believe our biggest national security risk is the number of unemployed, underemployed, and unemployable Liberians. I believe if we solve the unemployment problem, the official statistics is that 85% of Liberians are not employed in the formal sector. That is an unsustainable number. And until we fundamentally fix that issue, we will have a security challenge. Yes, we need to strengthen our police force. We need to pay them more. We need to train them. We need to give them the equipment they need. Yes, we need to do the same for our soldiers. Yes, we need to make sure our security apparatus is efficient and operating. But I say to you, my fellow Liberians, unless we address the underlying cause of the insecurity in our country, unless we fix the economy of our country, unless we provide jobs for our young people. Look, if you don't have a job, you don't know where your next meal is coming from, you got nothing to protect, you got nothing to look forward to, you are very vulnerable to any kind of influence. You have nothing to lose. And so trying to fix the apparatus without fixing that fundamental problem will just end up with more people in jail. And that is not the solution. I do agree that there has to be consequences for people who misbehave, but it cannot be consequences for just the petty criminal. It's got to be consequences for the government official who steals, who's a rogue. There's got to be consequences, no matter who you are, for any malfeasance, any misbehavior. But again, I say to you, unless we grow this economy, unless we create jobs for our people, we will not solve the national security problem. Thank you very much.
Councillor Brownskin.
The issue of the rule of law, and I think as to whether or not a particular matter should be prosecuted. It interferes with the justice system and causes a lack of cases. The president of Liberia should be free of that responsibility I would like to be able to wake up in the morning and read in the newspaper that the chairman of the Liberty Party has been arrested. Okay? Without any restraint, any input from me, that would help to move the justice system forward. We must train our law enforcement officers for them to know that not every probable cause should give rise to a jail sentence. They have to be able to use their own judgment at that level. But as president of Liberia and a lawyer, I look forward to working with the judiciary, the Chief Justice, to make sure that we solve some of those problems that are creating bottlenecks in our justice system. I do agree with Cummings that the underlying thing is the economy. And we have specific plan for moving the Liberian economy forward. You see, what has happened over the last 12 years is that the Sally Barker administration economic policy has been based on the Tubman economic policy, where they completely rely on the export of natural resources, unprocessed, whether semi or final. We will diversify this economy. We will not rely on natural resources as our major source of revenue, so that we'll be able to create opportunity employment for more Liberians. We will create a small business institute that will be used basically to help small and medium-sized Liberians get loans to finance their business operation, create employment not only for themselves, but also for their community at large. I thank you.
Just remain there, Councillor, and take this question. Quite recently, some lawmakers instituted an impeachment proceeding at the House of Representatives against 3 justices of the Supreme Court of Liberia. There are public views that this action by the House of Representatives could affect the peace and security of this country. What are your views, sir?
You asking me as a politician or as a lawyer? Because as a lawyer,
a combination.
As a lawyer, I will charge a fee. No, I'm just kidding.
No, go ahead.
You know, I made a press statement on the issue, and I said, I reassured the Liberian people, nothing those guys do in the legislature will affect peace or the stability of this country, because they're dead wrong. Their action is totally unconstitutional. The Liberian Constitution, Article 65, the first section of the Constitution under the judiciary, when you open it, no branch of government can review the action of the Supreme Court. Can you imagine these guys in the legislature say they want to impeach justices because they disagree with the opinion of the justices? That's not what you do in democracy. That's not what you do in the form of government that we have selected. What you do as a legislature is that if you disagree with the Supreme Court, you pass a new law overriding the Supreme Court's opinion and hope that that law you pass will pass the test of judicial scrutiny. But I say again, the Speaker, the members of the House, they're dead wrong. The action is unconstitutional, and the Supreme Court knows how to deal with it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Cummings? Do you want a question repeated?
No, it's the same question. Look, there's not too much more to add to what Councillor Bromsky said. You cannot have one branch of government challenging the other branch of government for exercising their constitutional right. The only basis for impeaching Supreme Court justices if you can prove they were corrupt or they stole or whatever violation of the Constitution. But because they exercise their rights as justices in interpreting the law, and you decide you're going to impeach them because of that, this is recipe for chaos. It really is, my fellow Liberians. We should not tolerate this kind of behavior. And so I will say no more. I agree with the councillor's point of view. If you disagree as a legislature with the ruling of the court, change the law. It is their right to interpret that law. They're exercising that right. And there's no basis for anybody trying to impeach them because they disagree with the interpretation of the law. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Balkan?
The same question?
Sir.
You know, I'm not a lawyer. The courts are protected by law, so are the legislature themselves. We have to know the full reason of which the legislature took the action. Could there have been a preemptive strike? I don't know. But my eminent lawyer had just said it. It's before the House, and some people have been trying to mediate. I cannot render judgment on it at this moment, but I know we have to respect the laws of our country. We have to abide by the laws of our country. The lawmakers are capable people, so are the judiciary. So for me, I wait for the outcome. I'm not a lawyer, as I said. I'm not going to prepare judgment of it. What we want in this country is peace. We want to make sure that all of those who hold offices are living by the laws of this country, that they will not interfere with the other areas that are not within their rights. And maybe that will be the determining factor.
So, sir, you said you are waiting for the outcome. If the outcome goes the way of the House of Representatives, will you support it?
For me, wherever the outcome comes, the law is the law. That's what we're supposed to respect. And that's what we don't want to respect in this country. The House, the representative, the Senate, and the judiciary is before them, and there are eminent citizens that are trying to work through it. We await that. I can make no judgment on it.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Ure? Do you want a question repeated?
We must all agree there are three separate, distinct, and independent branches of government, and one cannot interfere in the act. Also, why I agree that the case spoken about by my colleagues here, one branch of government does not have the right to challenge that of another. But when one branch of government decides that they will interfere in the duties of another, then it becomes questionable. The Supreme Court was actually making a law. There's nowhere in the law that they said it was a law of the land, that they call for an evaluation of the gravity of the crime. The thing here is, I give you it in simple terms. You 18 years old to become a citizen. The law states that you must resign 2 years prior to running for an elected post. They didn't say they would determine whether or not the crime was too egregious or not. Where did that come from? You either qualify or you don't qualify. You either a citizen or not. This is in simple terms. So even though they might have stepped in the prerogative of another branch of government, that other branch also stepped in their prerogative. Look, my people, it shows that we need to wake up in this country as Liberians. Some of these people we have representing us should not be representing us at all branches of government. Thank you.
Sir, just a follow-up. I just wanted to be clear about what you're saying. So basically you're saying that the Supreme Court overstepped its bounds, and that gave the House of Representatives the right to opt for impeachment.
Not the right, but that caused it.
That caused it.
Yeah.
So they were acting in a proper manner. Members of the House of Representatives.
I didn't say that. I'm saying both branches were in error.
Oh, okay. So what's the solution then?
Well, you know, the solution is going forward. You know, too often do we in Liberia say in the interest of peace. Everything now. People will commit crime. Then when you look, you will see the council of churches coming. In the interest of peace, let's leave it. The other person do this thing. The traditional council come. In the interest of peace. Everything in the interest of peace in this country. We need to go in the interest of the country. Laws and order.
Thank you, Mr. Ure. So we'll now have the final question on the security and the rule of law. Mr. Cummings, could you please go to the podium? Okay. And the question is, what specific plans do you have to protect women and girls from sexual violence, considering that many of the perpetrators of sex crimes do not serve a day in jail, and most victims rarely get justice?
The first, can we have one conversation, please? Thank you. Maureen, the first thing I would say is that sexual violence against our women is completely unacceptable. And we as a country, we as Liberians, including the leadership of our country, should make that very clear to all Liberians that this behavior is unacceptable, that we will prosecute anybody at any level in society who commits those crimes, will enforce the laws of our country. But even on a more positive note, we will commit that in a coming Lrtn-led government, 30 to 40 or as much as 50% of our leaders will be women. Because when you have women at the table, when you have women at the seat of government, they will influence the interpretations of the law, the execution of the law, and they will make sure, because they are victims, that they hold us accountable to enforcing the laws of our country. So in a government led by Alex Cummings, we will respect our women. We will give them the proper place at the table, but most importantly, we will enforce the laws of the land and prosecute anybody who violates somebody of the opposite sex.
Thank you, Mr. Cummings. Mr. Bromskin, would you please go to the podium? Do you need me to repeat the question?
No, not really.
Okay, thank you.
Let's start with the young girls and the classroom. It's become prevalent in this country where young girls are taken advantage of by school teachers and professors. A Bromskin-led government will criminalize such action, whether or not the student is of age to give consent. If you're teaching a girl, there is no place, no room for you to go over her. If you went over her, you go to jail. Finish. The lesson will be well taught in this country. With regards to women and rape, the law is on the book. What it takes now is the enforcement of the law. As a lawyer, I commit to the people of Liberia, especially to the women, that we will enforce the law. I'm concerned about the rights of women because 3 of the people who I love the most happen to be women. My late mother, my wife Estelle, who's sitting down there, 42 years, she tolerated me. I just want to say that I love you so dearly, Mommy. You know? And my daughter Charlene, who has shown to be a much better politician than I am. But these 3 women have shaped my life in many ways. And the least I can do is to show to every woman in this country that I have your back. I have your back.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President Boyka. Do you need me to repeat the question, sir?
Please.
What specific plans do you have to protect women and girls from sexual violence, considering that many of the perpetrators who commit these crimes don't serve a day in jail, and most victims rarely get justice in our system?
I've had the opportunity to talk with the judges of the court that have the responsibility to fight those. They have their problems, and I'm telling you the same thing about unresolved crime. I've said of the police quite often that the badges that the police wear are not hunting license. We also in government have to know, and I've said it often, even at cabinet, that we probably have a government, sometimes we pretend to pay and the people pretend to work. It must be people that are trained, people that are honest and love this country to administer security. I agree with my counterpart who say nobody should be protected. The dignity of our women must be protected. I have worked with women in many, many categories. But the court are flooded with these cases that people cannot prove. And once you can prove those cases, you might have somebody behind the bar who is innocent. So we must be able to have people both at the court, the police who have the information to be able to make sure that those that committed a crime are the right people behind the bar. The other thing is also to improve the dignity of our girls by helping to give them education and something to do, because people's protection must start with themselves too. If they know what to do to protect themselves, and they know where to be at a certain point in time. I'm not saying that some of them are violated but it works hand in hand. The law enforcement side, the court side, so that you make sure that those that are apprehended are prosecuted, but they too must know that somebody is not going to say this person did it, because all of us must be protected. Thank you.
No, it's fine. I am not a believer in reverse discrimination. So I want to mention here that also men are also raped, sexually harassed, and molested in Liberia. So we must open it all up and not only limit it to female. The thing here, and I want the female to know that I have 5 female, 4 mancho, 4 girls, and 1 wife, and they're all my heroes. I love them from the bottom of my heart to the rest of my body. But I know them. They also believe in justice. Justice delayed and justice denied, we must never tolerate in this country. Go to the central prison. People there live like animals. If any mother goes to that prison, she will weep. She will weep. My people, it's beyond imagination. And we must fix it. We must fix it. We must, first of all, create legislation that will ensure that there is a fast-track court for rape. What we have now is not functional. You got people running around in air-conditioned cars and making noise, justifying their salaries. Departments in the Ministry of Justice and other institutions, some of them financed by the international community. Let's take all this money and put it in a fast-track court on rape, where people can go and get justice. In addition to that, the department in the police that is involved in that, we need to get trained personnel to handle it, because no one wants to see their child or their relative being raped, whether it's a man or woman. It is bad. And a civilized society will frown on it. And I expect that Liberia, and I know that Liberia frowns on it. But we must put the resources toward the right thing. And I believe a fast-track court exclusively for rape will go a long way in solving that problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ure. We now move to the next sector, under peace and reconciliation. And we ask Councillor Bromston to move to the podium, please. Are you ready, sir? The findings of the recommendations of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission have been lingering for about 8 years now. Do you have any suggestions for implementing those recommendations? And how?
Before I answer that question, I want to go back to the earlier questions, because listening to some of the responses after me, I want to make sure that we all understand a woman who is raped or a girl who is abused can never be considered as a culprit. She is always a victim. And the law and the justice system must recognize that. We must even put in our school now educators who will train our young girls to let them know that there is nothing wrong with them complaining when their teacher touches them places that they should not be touched. I just want to make that point. Now let's come to peace and reconciliation. My understanding of the report is that it took 2 parallel approaches, one retributive and the other restorative justice. Retributive justice, it's been a long time. 8 years, as you said. My challenge as the president of this country is to reconcile our people, rebuild our country, and move this country forward. Do not mistake that to mean that I would tolerate impunity. There is no statute of limitation on felonies. So people may be grabbed later on. But for now, I think it's more important that we adopt the Palawa Hut approach, where perpetrators are shamed and victims are made whole again. Now, there can always be a hybrid of the situation where you invite everyone who participated in the war to come to the Palawa hut, and where they're shamed, and the victim is made whole. If they refuse to come, then you can put the criminal justice machinery into motion. Have them arrested, have them prosecuted. You may not even have to wait for a war crime court. But one thing I am certain of, there should be no impunity. No one should get away with the crimes that he or she have committed. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Cummings? Same question. Do you want to repeat it?
No.
Thank you.
Let me start answering that question by saying that, you know, we can't, no human being can do anything about yesterday or even an hour ago. We can only influence the moment now and the future. And I believe we as Liberians should focus on a reconciled future. Yes, we have to acknowledge the pain and the hurt caused in our country. We should not tolerate impunity. But I believe if we focus on the retributive portions of that report, it will consume us. It will divide us. It will have us looking backward instead of forward. So I want to convene a national conference of Liberians to once and for all address this issue of reconciliation. I want us to look at our national symbols. I want us to acknowledge the pain and hurt. I want us to build monuments where it is appropriate and makes sense. But I want us to look forward. I also believe, and I keep coming back to this economy, and I'm becoming a broken record, and I refer to this as this bowl of rice we all eat from. If we grow this bowl of rice, and every Liberian believes they can put their hand or their spoon and have access to it, it will help in the reconciliation process. It will help move us forward, move us ahead. When you have a shrinking economic pie, everybody looks after themselves. Then maybe they look after their family. Then maybe they look after their tribe and their community. But if we're expanding this economic pie and everybody has access, it will begin to fundamentally address reconciliation. But again, I emphasize, I'm for looking at a positive future for our people, for our country. Unfortunately, we cannot do anything about the past. And I don't want us as a country, as a people, to get consumed because I believe it will be more divisive. So let's come together. Let's have a conference. Let's acknowledge the pain and the hurt. Let's ensure that this never happens again, that there's no more impunity for any kind of killing or malfeasance. But let's look forward, my fellow Liberians. Let's look ahead. And I think that's how we'll move Liberia forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cummings. Mr. Vice President. Do you want a question repeated, sir?
You know, the Liberians are peaceful people. And all of us know the dividend that peace paid over the years. When the TRC started, I'd always wanted to see the South African approach. And you know very well the Palawa hut. We've used that and we need to do that. But I also believe that people must not just speak peace, they must see you moving in that direction, practicing our conduct in government, the way we behave to one another, the removal of impunity. I also believe that people talk about reconciliation. I have a stronger belief that once we open up our country, we create jobs, people move freely, you don't have to. Putting people under the platform is good, but you demonstrate that. Give the people opportunity. Let them move out. Let them build the economy. Let them see that their lives, that they are part of the rebuilding of this country. Let Liberians begin to see themselves doing businesses. The hurt is there. That hurt will go over a period with policies that will improve the people's lives. You can put the people under the palaver 10 years. It might just make a small difference. But let our conduct to see that the lives of people have been touched. I believe in the South African version, where we make sure that the court system is not what I would just recommend. But most people, if you go up country, you hear the feeling of people, they want to enjoy the peace now. They want to see their life transformed. We should speed up to give them that which make them see themselves as part of this country. Their children going to school, they have better health centers. And you will see gradually their life will improve and they will begin to build the peace. It doesn't take me to do it. It takes the policy that we put in place to better their lives.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Can we ask the security out there, please? The noise is infiltrating here. Can they please ask them to move away? Mr. Ure? Same question.
The TRC, not only the report, but the whole process continues to hunt us as a people. And the reason why is because we didn't do it right. And we were not patriotic. And we were not genuine in the whole process. We had actors in our Civil War who actually were members of the TRC. We had actors in our Civil War who appeared before the TRC and admitted to the crime and boasted about it and said that they have no regret and we didn't have the system to go after them judicially. Where does it leave us as a people? We have perpetrators of atrocity and all because they manipulated the system. In fact, they've been manipulating our democracy for decades, and they continue to manipulate it. None of them were recognized in that TRC for the ills they did to our society. They're free today. Under a Euro-Dopo-led government, we are prepared to go, be the first to enter war crime tribunal, to exonerate ourselves and anybody else that relates to us. But we must revisit the TRC. It must be revisited. Or we must just squash it. It must be revisited, and the people we in Liberia who've been living here, not people who just came, we know who did what in this country. And for them to be free, we say it's wrong. They always sit behind pushings and get away with it. And that's what they did with the TRC. They put all the people on the TRC to ensure that they are protected. So everybody that participated in the war must get the day in court. Finally, my people, on reconciliation, the TRC and all, I want to tell you all here today that the ALP, the All Liberian Party, has what we call the 15 months things we must do for the Liberian people. And the first one of those is that we must reconcile and unite our country. The first of it, we have recognized that the most important thing in our country is reconciliation and unity. And in between, we must provide safe drinking water, electricity, jobs, and all of that. But the last must of the ALP is that we must love one another. And it's that love that surpasses all understanding. It's the love for Liberia that brings us here today.
The last question on peace and reconciliation, and we begin with Mr. Cummings. Yeah. Reese, during the Civil War, we lost thousands because of ethnicity. We thought we had moved past that during the post-conflict era. But during these campaigns, the old Congo native divide was reignited. There have even been advocacy for the declaration of Liberia as a Christian state. Would you clearly condemn tribal and religious bigotry? What are your plans to heal the divide that could threaten the peace that we currently enjoy?
Thank you, Boykai. You know, I would say it's been very disappointing to hear Liberians advocate this divisiveness, this divisive politics. I say to my fellow Liberians that joblessness, hunger, lack of healthcare facilities does not distinguish between Grebo, Gio, Kru, Congo. It affects all Liberians. I want to be president of all Liberians. I want to be president of Christian Liberians. I want to be president of Muslim Liberians. I want to be president of Liberians who practice their local religion. We should all deplore, given our recent history, anybody who propounds, who proposes that we think about ourselves along these divisive lines. But I say to you again, the fundamental way that we get at solving that issue is not only should we take on people who propose it, but if we're growing this bowl of rice, if we're growing this national economy, if people have jobs, if people can feed themselves, they will care less about the differences. And we can focus more on our commonality as a people, as a country. We can work better together if all of our stomachs are full, as opposed to only a few people who go to bed with their stomachs full every night. But I say unequivocally that it's extremely disheartening, extremely disappointing for those people who advocate this point of view. We as leaders should be talking about bringing ourselves together. We as leaders should be looking for solutions for all Liberians, not for any one group of Liberians. And shame on those who advocate that point of view. And we all, and I hope all my colleagues here, are advocating to be president of all Liberians and not of any one sector, religion, tribe, but of all Liberians. And this is what a coming Lrtn-led administration will advocate on behalf of our people. Thank you.
Vice President Boykai.
I think you listen to the jingle, it tells you how I feel. I don't feel superior to anybody, so it doesn't matter who you are. We want all Liberians with equal opportunity to contest for positions in government and elsewhere. And so I do not preach tribalism. I have gone to school with every one of these people. We all live together. So for me, tribalism is not part of my blood. And I have friends from all over. You talk about the issue of tribalism being preached. For us, we have already committed ourselves to an inclusive government, an inclusive approach to all issues that have to do with Liberia, because I don't believe in a divide and rule. Now, over the period, you've listened to statements from people. We make sure that we guide our people to understand that this Liberia is for all. and that all of us can live in peace, but we have to practice what we preach so that we can be seen as Liberians together. The other point,
to declare Liberia a Christian state.
now, I think I'm on record to say that if you want to be seen as a good Christian, practice it. Live the Christ-like and be able to win people. Putting a tattoo on your back doesn't make you a Christian. We want people to demonstrate. I like to see the Christian living a life in government, in what they do, that will attract other people to say that religion is good. Let me be with it. It's not going to tattoo yourself. So I don't believe in a country calling itself particularly a Christian state. Live the Christian life as Jesus lived to inspire
In church. And his father was a Presbyterian preacher. He went to school with my little brother. Told him mission. But my people, we must be cognizant of one thing. It's campaign. People would do anything to win. I gave you another example. I also, if I stand here to you today and tell you I'm indigenous, you might not believe it, but it is the fact. My mother is a native woman. My father, a Congo man. But not only my mother, my mothers, because I had 3 mothers. Now, let's go to the religious aspect of it. Religiously, we say we'll all be surprised. We're all surprised that anyone would come up with that foolishness at this point in time in our lives. Talking about Liberia being removed from a secular state to a Christian state. But let's face it, we will expect that all our Islamic brothers will be against it, but the people who have perpetuated that, they're supporting them in this whole electoral process. So it shows that it's a mix-up thing. We will expect that all our Islamic brothers will be fighting. It will almost be a sin to Islam to support somebody who says that Liberia should be a Christian state, but we see them supporting them. So we're confused. But we must conclude by saying, for the good of the country, we must move forward and leave the ills behind.